I was lying in my hospital bed, stitched up from the emergency surgery, body aching, and heart even worse off. I had just woken up from anesthesia, the bright light stinging my eyes, and the first thing I asked the nurse was, "Are my twins okay?" She looked confused. She said no children had been brought in, and asked if they were supposed to be here. My breath caught in my throat. I called my parents, panic rising in every bone of my body. My voice was shaky. "Mom, where are the kids?" She laughed, actually laughed. "Oh honey, we couldn't cancel our concert tickets. We've been planning this for months. Don't be so dramatic." I was speechless. She hung up. That's when I realized I had trusted the wrong people. My parents didn't just let me down. They abandoned my babies. I didn't even know if they were safe. And that was just the beginning. Rewind a few weeks earlier, and things looked much more hopeful. My name is Jessica. I'm a 28-year-old single mom of twin toddlers, Liam and Lily, the light of my life. I work full-time as a nurse, and I was managing everything as best I could after their father left us when I was still pregnant. I didn't come from money, and my life was built on hard work, cheap coffee, and late nights with no sleep. But I loved my kids, and every smile they gave made the struggle worth it. One day, I started experiencing sharp abdominal pains during a night shift. At first, I thought it was just stress or maybe something I ate. But the pain got worse, much worse. One morning, I collapsed in the bathroom. My neighbor, Amanda, heard the crash and rushed me to the ER. The doctors said I needed surgery. Something about a twisted ovary and internal bleeding. They said it couldn't wait. I had no one else to call but my parents. They were retired, healthy, and lived just 20 minutes away. I didn't ask them for much, ever. But this time, I had no choice. I asked them to please take care of Liam and Lily for 2 nights, just until I was stable enough to come back home. They agreed. Or at least, they pretended to. When I dropped the twins off, my dad looked annoyed. My mom asked if I could leave money for takeout. Still, I believed they'd manage. "Thank you," I said, tears in my eyes. "Just 2 days. That's all." They just nodded and shut the door behind them. It didn't sit right with me, but I had no other option. The surgery was scheduled for the next morning. I held my kids tight before heading to the hospital and told them Mommy would be back very soon. "Be good for Grandma and Grandpa," I whispered. But little did I know, I was leaving them with people who didn't care. After my surgery, as I lay in that bed calling my mom and hearing those cold words, my world spun. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't believe it. They had actually gone to a concert. And they left my toddlers alone. I couldn't imagine what state the house was in. Were they crying? Hungry? Safe? I called Amanda, my neighbor again, and begged her to go check. She didn't hesitate. While I was on the phone, I heard her knock, then silence. Her gasp chilled me to the bone. That's when Amanda said, "Jessica, your twins were home alone." I froze. "What?" I whispered, barely able to breathe. "I found them in the living room," she said, trying to stay calm. They were crying. Both of them. "Jessica, they were in diapers that hadn't been changed in hours. There were no adults here. No food on the table. Nothing." Tears flooded my eyes. I wanted to jump out of that hospital bed and run home. Amanda stayed on the phone with me while she called Child Protective Services and then the police. She took the twins back to her apartment, gave them food, cleaned them up, and wrapped them in warm blankets. I owed her more than I could ever repay. Meanwhile, I was stuck in a hospital room, stitches in my stomach, and 4 in my arm, and pain running through every part of me. But the real pain, that was in my heart. My parents had lied. They said they'd take care of my babies, and then they went to a concert and abandoned them like they didn't matter. The officers showed up at the hospital an hour later to take my statement. I gave them every detail I could. I didn't care anymore if it meant my parents got in trouble. They had crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. The police officer looked concerned but kind. "We're glad your neighbor was there. If she hadn't been, this could have gone a lot worse." Those words stuck with me. Worse. It could have been worse. What if Amanda hadn't heard them crying? What if someone broke into the house while they were alone? What if one of the twins had gotten hurt? That night, I couldn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling of the hospital room, trying to understand how my own parents could be so cold. I thought about all the years I spent trying to be a good daughter. The birthdays I never missed. The favors I always ran when they needed help. The way I made sure they had food when money was tight, even when I barely had enough for myself. And yet, when I needed them the most, they left my children behind for a concert. The next morning, the doctor cleared me for discharge early. I begged him. I said I had 2 babies who needed their mom more than anything. Amanda picked me up and brought the twins along. The moment I saw Liam and Lily, I broke down in tears. They ran into my arms, hugging me so tight that I winced from the stitches, but I didn't care. They were safe. They were mine. And I would never leave them again. Amanda looked at me, her eyes tired but kind. You need to file for emergency custody and get them away from your parents permanently, she said. I nodded. I knew she was right. Back at home, everything was a mess. The twins' diaper bag was empty. The fridge at my parents' house had barely any food. I later found out they had ordered pizza the night before my surgery, left leftovers on the table, and just walked out the next morning without saying a word. They didn't even check if the twins were asleep. They didn't tell a neighbor. They didn't even lock the door. It was pure luck that Amanda had heard the crying. But what broke me more than anything was what I found next. I had gone back to my parents' house to pick up a few things. I noticed a crumpled piece of paper near the trash bin. It was a printout of the concert tickets, VIP passes. I turned it over and saw my mom's handwriting. Don't forget. Jess can't guilt us again. We deserve a night off. She's always a burden with those kids. A burden. That word hit me like a punch to the chest. They didn't see me as their daughter anymore. Just a weight. An inconvenience. I kept that paper. Not for revenge, but as a reminder. A reminder of how much better my kids deserved. How I needed to become someone stronger, someone they could rely on without fear. Amanda helped me file a restraining order. My parents tried calling a few times, pretending like nothing happened. We thought Amanda was coming over. You should have told us you were serious. It's not our fault. I didn't answer. I couldn't. There was nothing left to say. But the world had a funny way of circling back. Just a few weeks later, while I was still healing, something happened that flipped everything upside down again. I got a letter at first. I thought it was just another bill. But when I opened it, I saw a name I hadn't seen in years. It was from Liam and Lily's dad. He wanted to meet. I stared at the letter for a long time. It was handwritten, in the same messy scrawl I remembered from years ago. The name at the bottom, Zachary Wells, sent a chill through my body. Zach. My ex. The man who vanished when I told him I was pregnant. I opened the letter slowly, my hand shaking. Jessica. I know I'm the last person you want to hear from. I don't expect you to forgive me. I've done a lot of growing up, and I've spent years regretting how I left. I recently found out what happened to you through a mutual friend. I want to meet our kids, if you'll let me. Zach. It was short. No demands. No pressure. Just a request. And that somehow made it scarier. I didn't know if I could trust him. Not after he ghosted me when I needed him most. But part of me, maybe a tiny, stubborn part, wanted to hear him out. Amanda was furious when I told her. That guy doesn't deserve even a second of your time, she snapped. He left you to raise 2 kids alone. Now he just gets to waltz back into your life. I know, I said. But I need to see who he is now. Not for me. For them. We agreed to meet at a public park. Safe, open, and familiar. When I got there, I saw him sitting on a bench, nervously tapping his foot. He looked older, more tired. There were bags under his eyes, and his once perfect hair was now messy and shorter. When he saw me, he stood up awkwardly. Jess, hi. I kept my arms crossed. Don't call me that. He nodded. Fair. There was a long pause. I'm not here to make excuses, he said. When you told me you were pregnant, I panicked. I was stupid. I thought I wasn't ready, so I ran. But I never stopped thinking about you. Or them. I wanted to scream. I wanted to cry. I wanted to punch him. But instead, I asked, why now? He looked down. Because I found out what your parents did. I saw a post someone made on Facebook about it. I thought, if you were in trouble, maybe I could help. It's probably too late, but I want to try. We talked for hours. I didn't trust him yet, but he seemed different. He had a job now, worked in construction, and had just moved back to town to be closer to his mom, who was sick. When I got home, I told Amanda everything. She didn't like it, but she saw the look in my eyes. You're thinking about letting him see them, aren't you? I nodded. Only supervised, I said. Only if they want to. I showed the twins a picture of Zach. This is your dad. He wants to meet you. But only if you feel okay with it. They were quiet. Then Liam said, can we meet him at the park where the ducks are? It was the same park where I first told Zach I was pregnant. So we went. Zach was gentle, patient. He brought toys, snacks, even coloring books. He didn't push. He let them come to him. And slowly, they did. After a few visits, they started calling him Daddy Zach. It was strange and beautiful and painful all at once. But just when things were starting to feel normal again, something else happened. Something I never saw coming. I was at the grocery store, pushing the twins in a cart, when I saw her. My mom. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. Jessica, she said, rushing toward me. Please. I need to talk to you. I backed away. We have nothing to talk about. She looked around nervously. Your father's in trouble. We need help. My heart sank. I'm not your burden anymore, I said coldly. Go ask the people you ditched us for. I turned and walked away, but she followed. Please, she begged. Your dad got arrested. There's been a misunderstanding. He needs a lawyer, and we can't afford one. That's when I realized something. This wasn't about love or family or regret. They just needed something again. Just like always. I almost kept walking. But then, I made a choice that surprised even me. I looked my mother dead in the eyes and said, fine, I'll help. But on one condition. She blinked. Anything. I want the truth. Everything. About why you left my kids alone. About the note. About all of it. She swallowed hard. And then she said something I wasn't ready for. You weren't supposed to find the note. It wasn't about you. But before I could ask what that meant, she collapsed right there in the middle of the store. The store erupted in panic as my mother hit the floor. Shoppers rushed over, someone yelled for help, and a man in a blue hoodie called 911. I just stood there frozen, the twins clinging to my legs, wide-eyed and terrified. Mommy, is she dead? Emma asked in a small voice. No, baby, I said quickly, snapping out of it. She's just sick. Help is coming. An ambulance arrived within minutes, the EMTs pushing through the crowd to reach her. They asked me questions I could barely answer. All I could think about were her last words. You weren't supposed to find the note. It wasn't about you. What did that even mean? They loaded her into the ambulance, and one of the paramedics asked if I wanted to ride with her. I hesitated. After everything she did, or didn't do, why should I? But I said yes. Not for her, but for closure. I called Amanda and asked her to pick up the twins. She didn't ask questions. Just said, go. I've got them. At the hospital, I sat alone in the waiting room. The white walls, the beeping machines behind closed doors, the steady shuffle of nurses' shoes, it was all too familiar. It reminded me of the days I was stuck here before my surgery. The days I had no one. A doctor finally came out and told me my mother had collapsed from exhaustion and dehydration. Nothing fatal. She'd be okay after rest and fluids. I let out a breath I didn't even realize I was holding. Then they let me see her. She looked smaller in the hospital bed. Older. Weaker. Not the powerful woman I remembered from my childhood. "Jessica," she whispered. "I'm here," I said, standing stiffly at the end of the bed. She reached for my hand, but I didn't move. "You said the note wasn't about me," I reminded her. "Explain." She closed her eyes for a second, then opened them again. "It was for your father. We were fighting. I was angry. I wrote it in the heat of the moment." "But you left," I said. "You left me alone when I was begging for help. You called me a burden." Tears welled up in her eyes. "That was real. And I'm so sorry. We were selfish. We thought you'd bounce back like you always did." I shook my head. I had surgery. I could barely move. I had 2 toddlers crying and no one to turn to. "I know," she whispered. "And we were wrong. But your father, he's in worse trouble now." I crossed my arms. "Let me guess. You want me to fix it?" "No," she said softly. "I want you to know the truth." And that's when she told me something that made my blood run cold. "Your father used your identity." "What?" I gasped. She nodded slowly. "He was desperate. He took out credit cards in your name. I told him to stop, but he didn't. Now he's being investigated for fraud. The police think you might have been involved." My head spun. "He what?" My mom burst into tears. "They're going to come for you next. I don't know how much they know, but they're building a case. You need a lawyer." My legs went weak, and I had to sit down. All this time, I thought the worst had already happened. But no. My dad had committed fraud, in my name, and I could be dragged into the mess. I stumbled out of the hospital room and called Amanda. "I need your help," I said, trying not to cry. "I'm already on it," she said. "Zach told me everything. He's talking to a lawyer right now." I blinked. "He what?" "Yeah," Amanda said. "Turns out he's got a friend who's really good. We're going to fight this." That night, I met with the lawyer, James Torres. A sharp, no-nonsense kind of guy who'd seen plenty of identity theft cases. "We need to prove you had no part in this," he said. "Do you have access to your dad's mail, credit statements, or bank records?" "No," I said. "He keeps everything locked up." "Then we find another way," he said. "Don't worry. We've got time, but not much." The next morning, Amanda knocked on my door with something in her hands. "A showbox. I went by your parents' place," she said. "Their front door was unlocked. I found this in the closet." Inside were dozens of unopened letters, bills, and notices, all in my name. Proof. I sat down on the couch, holding one of the letters. My hands shook as I read it. Thousands of dollars. Late fees. Debt collectors. My name was on every single page. That's when the doorbell rang. I looked through the peephole. It was 2 men in suits. They flashed badges. "Jessica Williams?" one of them asked. My heart dropped. "Yes. You're under investigation for credit fraud and identity theft. We need you to come with us." The moment those words left the officer's mouth, it felt like the walls around me collapsed. My throat dried up. My hands went cold. Emma and Ethan peeked from behind the couch, and Amanda stood frozen next to the showbox full of letters. Please come with us," the second officer repeated. "You're not under arrest at this time. We just have questions." Amanda stepped in quickly. "She's not saying another word without her lawyer. James Torres is on his way." The officers hesitated, exchanged a look, and one nodded. "We'll wait outside. But don't leave the property." As soon as the door closed, Amanda turned to me. "Okay. This is real. But it's okay. That box is proof. Your dad's going down for this, not you." I nodded slowly, still shaking. "But what if it's not enough? What if they think I was in on it? Jess, listen to me, she said, grabbing my hands. You are the kindest, most hard-working person I know, and we're not letting them pin this on you. James arrived 10 minutes later, and after a quick talk, he invited the officers back in. They took statements, asked questions, and took the showbox as evidence. James stayed calm and sharp the whole time. You're cooperating, he told them, which will go a long way. After they left, I collapsed into Amanda's arms and cried harder than I had in months. Everything was falling apart. Again. But this time, I had people beside me. Over the next week, things moved fast. James filed paperwork, submitted evidence, and got us in front of a judge to prevent my accounts from being frozen. I had to answer so many questions I lost count. Amanda helped with the twins while I dealt with meetings and court dates. Then came the day I never thought I'd see. My father was arrested. I watched from across the courthouse lobby as officers led him away in cuffs. His eyes met mine, and for a second, I thought I saw shame. But maybe it was just fear. My mother didn't come to court. I hadn't spoken to her since the hospital. She sent a text once. I didn't know it would go this far. I'm sorry. But sorry doesn't fix thousands of dollars in debt. It doesn't fix betrayal. Still, with James and Amanda's help, I was cleared of all charges. My name was finally clean. Or so I thought. Because just when I began to breathe again, another bomb dropped. A letter came in the mail, addressed to me. It was from the concert venue. The one my parents went to the night of my surgery. The letter stated I owed $1,200 for damages to a VIP booth, under my name. What is this? I asked aloud. Amanda's jaw dropped. They used your name, again. I picked up the phone and called the venue. After several transfers, I got someone who explained it all. Jessica Williams booked the VIP booth. Signed the form. Left it a mess. Drinks spilled. Furniture damaged. But I wasn't there. I shouted. The employee paused. We have the signature. And a copy of the ID used. Can you email it to me? Sure, she said. When I opened the email, I felt sick. It was my ID. Only it wasn't. The photo was grainy, like it had been copied or faked. But it looked enough like me to pass a quick glance. And the signature. Not mine. My dad had used my identity again. Even while being investigated. He never stopped. I called James right away. He went silent for a few seconds, then said, Jessica, this might not be just fraud. This could be something much bigger. Like what? Like he's done this to other people before. And if that's true, he might be part of a ring. I stared at the fake ID on my screen, my hands trembling. You're saying my dad might be a criminal, on a whole other level. James didn't answer right away. Then he said, we need to talk to the FBI. The word FBI echoed in my mind for hours after that call. I sat in silence while Amanda cleaned up dinner and got the twins ready for bed. My phone sat in my lap, screen dark, but my thoughts were anything but. I couldn't sleep that night. Because this wasn't just about my parents refusing to watch my twins. This wasn't just about them abandoning me for a concert, or about them calling me a burden. It wasn't even about the fraud or the fake ID anymore. It was about who my father really was. And how deep this went. James came over the next morning with a folder full of documents and a very serious look on his face. I spoke with a contact at the bureau, he said. I didn't give your name, not yet, but I described the case. They are interested. Because this looks like part of a bigger scam that's been active for years. I blinked. My dad's part of that. Possibly. These guys use family members' names, fake documents, and tie it all back to someone else so they never get caught. But we've got a paper trail now. Your surgery date, the concert charges, your identity being used. This could be the crack in the wall. Amanda leaned forward. What happens if the FBI gets involved? They'll take over the case. Bigger team. More resources. It could mean a lot more time in prison for your dad. Maybe even others getting exposed. I felt a mix of emotions: relief, fear, anger, sadness. And what about my mom? I whispered. She didn't fake the ID, but she knew about it. James looked down. That's going to depend on what the investigators find. She might be considered complicit. I didn't want that. As much as I was hurt by her betrayal, I didn't want to see her go to jail. But I also couldn't protect people who had tried to destroy me. A few days later, the FBI scheduled a meeting with me and James at their local office. Amanda stayed with the twins while I went. Walking into that federal building was like walking into another world. Men and women in suits, stern faces, rooms that looked like movie sets. I sat down at a table across from two agents. One took notes. The other asked questions. I told them everything. From the surgery to the voicemail, from the box of letters to the fake concert charges. They listened carefully, sometimes asking for details I hadn't even thought about. At the end of it, they nodded. "We're going to need a little time," one agent said. "But this is strong. It lines up with 2 other reports we've received recently." I was stunned. "Wait, other people?" "Yes," he said. "Very similar stories. Family members using their identity. Financial damage. Emotional trauma. This isn't just fraud. This is abuse." It hit me then. How many others might be silently suffering, ashamed, thinking they were alone. Just like I had felt. James told me later that day, "You might have just helped uncover something big, Jess. You're not just a survivor anymore. You might be the person who stops this from happening again." But peace didn't come instantly. A week later, I received another call. This time, it wasn't from the FBI or Amanda or James. It was from a woman named Carol. "Hi, are you Jessica Williams?" she asked. "Yes. Who is this?" "You don't know me. But I think we might be sisters." I almost dropped the phone. "What?" "I saw your name in a Facebook post about fraud cases tied to a man named Daniel Williams. He's my father, too. At least, that's what my mom told me. He left us when I was 6. We never heard from him again." I sat down, legs weak. "Wait, are you serious?" "I'm sorry to drop this on you," Carol said. "But I think your dad might have done this before. To us. To other people." My mind spun. Was this real? Was my father some kind of con man with secret families? How far back did this go? Before I could respond, Carol said something that changed everything. "I have a box. Just like the one you found. With letters. And pictures. And fake names." Tears welled in my eyes. This wasn't just about revenge. This wasn't just about justice. It was about stopping a man who had hurt too many people, and finding healing through truth. "I want to meet you," I whispered. "I want that too," she said. "And there's more you need to see. About your dad. About what he did. About who else might be involved." If you liked this, then do subscribe to our channel.